Boys and girls, this is the answers to the classwork that you did. Number one, both of them are, the two equations are right here. And if you look, I graphed each one. First one had a y equals 3 halves, is at a y-intercept of 0. Goes up 3 over 2, so that's this line. And then the other one, y equals negative x plus 6, positive 6, down 1 over 1. And you can see that they cross at 2, 3, so there's one solution, it's at 2, 3. Number 2, you can see that, and please pause it if you're not sure, this is how I changed this equation to the equation in slope-intercept form, y equals 1/2 x plus 1. This one over here changes to y equals 1/2 x minus 3 halves. Minus 3 halves is the same as negative 1.5. So the first one, I go down 1.5, and then to get to the other point, I'm going to use the slope of 1/2. Up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2, and so on. And then the other one, you can see has a y-intercept of 1, but it goes up 1 over 2. Right here, you notice that the slopes are the same. So not even if you didn't graph them, you would know that there is no solution because they do not intersect. Number 3, I used a system of equation. I'm sorry, it is a system of equation. I use substitution. So this one's already solved for y. So I plugged in an x plus 4 into this equation for y. So you can see instead of 2 times y, it's 2 times x plus 4. So go ahead and pause this if you need to see exactly how I solved it. But you get x equals 1. And then since 1 plus 4 is 5, y equals 5. Number 4, I did right here. One of them's already solved for y, so I just plug in the negative 3x plus 10. Be careful because you have to distribute a negative 2, so you get positive 6x minus 20. So the 6x's are going to cancel out. Negative 6x plus positive 6x is 0. I'm left with negative 20 equals negative 20, which is a true statement. And that would mean it's infinite solutions or all solutions. Number 5, you already read it, but the two equations, Marty, now this is comparing two different people for weight. So we're going to make x the number of weeks, and the other thing we don't know is their total amount of weight, or their total weight. So Marty is going to be y equals 250, because he starts at 250, minus x, because he's losing 1 pound a week. Jose is y equals 180 plus 2x, because he's gaining 2 pounds a week. And when you put that right up here, when you use substitution, you get this answer, this equation right here, because you're plugging 250 minus x in for y in the other equation, and I'm solving. You get 70 equals 3x, so x is 70 over 3, which is about 23.3, or it's exactly 23 1/3. So after the 23rd week, that's when they're going to be equal, so you'd have to say about 24 weeks. You could probably say between 23 and the 23rd and 24th week. All right, so the question that I want you guys to do, and again, pause the tape so that you can work on this on your own, but this is for you to do. All right. Here's the question, and I want you to read it, and I want you to answer 3 questions. How many guests? There's a wedding reception. Oops. Okay. Sorry, let me get to that. Okay, here we go. There's a wedding reception, and it could either be at the car barn or Red Palace. And the first question I want you to answer is for how many guests will the cost of the two places be the same? So this is actually the original question said Irish Inn, car barn, and Red Palace. So here's this one we're going to change to Red Palace. Okay. Site fee, meaning just to rent the place, is $4,800, and per guest it's $50. For the car barn, it's cheaper to rent, but it's more per guest, $75. So I want to know, when will the cost be the same? Then the other 2 questions I want you to answer is, when would you choose to go to each of them? If you had to give someone advice on which one to choose, which one would you tell them to choose and why? And the last question is if you had 35 guests. At 35 guests, these two places are not going to be equal. But what I want to know is, what would you have to raise the car barn site fee for the two to be even at that point after 35 guests? So again, the car barn at 35 guests, car barn is going to be cheaper. But what if you raised the site fee? How much would you have to raise the site fee in order for it to be cheaper? So again, pause the video and go ahead and try this on your own, and then I'm going to go right to the answer. All right, so here's the answer. All right, so the two equations that we have are y equals, one of them is going to be 50x plus 4,800. This is going to be the, I believe, the Red Palace. So I'm going to label that Red Palace. And the car one, the car barn is 1,000 right away, but 75 per guest. So y equals 75 per guest plus 1,000. So if I want to know when they're going to be equal, I can just solve the system of equation. Well, one of them is already, they're both actually solved for y. So I can go into this equation and take what y equals and substitute it in. So I'm going to do that. So 75x plus 1,000 is equal to 50x plus 4,800. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 50. I'm going to get all my x's on the same side. 25x. It's going to be plus 1,000, but then I'm just going to have to subtract 1,000. So let me do those two steps at once, which equals 3,800. Now I'm going to have to divide by 25. 25 on both sides. And 25 goes into 3,800 one time. And then you get a remainder of 13. And 25 goes into 130 5 times with a remainder of, you get 125. So you get a remainder of 5. I'm sorry. 25 goes into 130. So you got 4 times is 106. So that is actually, it goes in 6 times, and that brings you to 100 and, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, 5 times, 125. And then 25 goes into 50 twice. So you get a x equals 152. And if you plug 152 back into one of your equations, so 50 times 152, you get 0 times 2, 10, 25, 26, and you get 7,600. So they're the same when you have 152 of x, which is 152 guests, and the cost is at that point both going to be $7,600. So that's the first question you got answered. The second question is, when would you choose the car barn? When would you choose the Red Palace? Well, since at this point they are equal, that means that for more guests, the one that costs more per guest is going to be more. So at any time after 152 guests, the car barn is actually going to be more expensive. So you're going to choose Red Palace if you're under less than 152 guests. I'm sorry, I did the wrong one. You're going to choose the car barn if you are less than 152 guests, but you're going to choose the Red Palace if you are greater than 152 guests. Now the last question is a little bit different. So I'm going to go on to another slide. Let me go ahead and erase, and please pause this if you need to. The last question said, if you had 35 guests, how much more would you have to add to one of them so that they are equal? So this one was plus 4,800. So if I know there's 35 guests, all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug a 35 in for each of them. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve. So go ahead and do that. what you should find is 50 times 35 plus 4,800 would give you a total cost for this one of $6,550. Now, if you had 35 guests in the other one, what it would be 75 times 35 plus 1,000, and you get 3,625. Well, this one's obviously less, and if you want them to be equal, well, you would have to add more to the site fee. So how much more would you have to add? You would just go ahead and you would take them and find out what is the difference. So 6,550 minus 3,625 is a difference of $2,925. So if you had 35 guests and you wanted them to be equal, you would have to add 2,925 to the site fee of the car barn for them to be equal.